So today's discussion is with Billy Ferguson, who is now the CTO of Thincats, a fast-growing fintech business with a really unique story to tell. And I think Billy's perspective on his journey from a bigger corporate bank into a small fintech is going to be really fascinating to hear about.
So, first of all, how would you describe your leadership style?
So I guess it's kind of matured and developed a bit over time, but generally I like to work with an empowered team. One of the principles we've got our team is, everybody's a leader. So I don't see all the direction, everything coming from me. And I think with that, I expect people to work with autonomy and kind of self-drive and self-management, self-policing. So I don't like to micromanage. I'm there to support and bring the best out of people rather than me be the one that comes up with all the ideas and chase you down until you get it done.
So in terms of in the role that you're currently doing with Thinkcats, where was the kind of the culture or what was the perception of technology when you first went into the role?
It changed a lot. There'd been quite a revolving door of tech leadership positions. So people had come in with different views and driven different things. And the team was a real small nucleus of people, to be fair, when I went in there. Amani, the CEO, had given me the support to grow. He said, come in, we need to grow and build the right team. So I knew that was there, but I didn't want to lose the passion and the kind of the knowledge that was built up within the team that we had. So there was a lot of uncertainty about what's to come and where we're going and what's next, and are we going to have a clear direction and are we going to stick to it, or is this just going to be flip-flopping between stuff? So I think setting a bit of direction that I commit to and then we kind of go with was a big part of that to help move forward with that culture. I kind of talked about that kind of culture session. The first time I tried to do it with the team, it didn't land well. They weren't ready for it. It was like, let's talk about culture, talk about where we are, that's what we want. It was like a tumbleweed moment of no, not ready, can't do this. So I think some of that was, I guess, lesson for me was sometimes you've got to let these things happen a bit more naturally. In fact, I'm quite kind of impatient with some of that stuff to get it going and build that connection. You've got to work with how everybody else in the room is ready to kind of take it on. So we revisited it a couple of times until everyone was ready, and then they embraced it, and then they kind of got into it. So yeah, it wasn't an immediate win. It was definitely not quite sure why we're doing this, and then we'll come back to it, and when you're ready, and then we'll go again.
Yeah, I think we've all been there, haven't we, where you've got those kind of whiteboard sessions and you're standing there and you're trying to get engagement from those around you and it just kind of falls on deaf ears. Right?
Yeah.
What do you think the critical turning point was?
I think seeing some of the value of how we kind of run. So the way I run the team is that we break everything down into kind of three different types. So everybody is either focused on running the business, changing the business, or transforming the business. And our meetings are structured around that. So Monday is run, Thursday is change. Monthly we talk about transform and strategy. And I think as they started to kind of see the value in those strategy sessions and the transform stuff, then they got more buy-in into it. Other than to begin with, it was just like, well, we don't ever get together and we never have a monthly meeting, and why are we doing this? And so you've got second, third month into that cadence, and they see the kind of what's coming out of it. That then sort of made them see the value in it for themselves. They're getting more visibility of where we are as a business, what else is going on, whatever people are doing within the team. You have pockets of people just literally no idea what the person virtually sat next to them was doing. So all of that gave more of a kind of perspective on how to work together, how to kind of move forwards, how to engage. Then you can have a conversation around, right, let's talk about culture now that you kind of know why we're here and there is a point in this. I'm not just wasting your time. But a bit more patience is probably my lesson though.
Right, yeah, I can see that. You've talked about the kind of turning point there, but at what stage do you see that then start to be led by the team? Have you got to that stage yet, or is it still very much you're driving it and they're just getting better at then embedding it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm definitely sort of the driving force behind it, which is I think that's fine. That's kind of part of my role, is kind of to have enough headspace to kind of focus on that. But where, again, we kind of built over time is you kind of get more unprompted input to say, oh, can I bring something along to the session? I want to share this. I want to talk about this. I want other people to engage on whatever it be. And literally, just came from a session now, we're talking about, we've used Jira for quite a long time, but as just as a kind of a development backlog type list, pure list. We moved into Agile last year more kind of fully, rather than just kind of Fragile. We're kind of properly into Agile, and what we've been trying to do is use Jira properly to support us with Agile backlog and kind of burn down and work through. And Livia, who's kind of strong in this area, was like, I want to take on work on this, and we're just going through what she's doing. So can I bring that to the next session? I want everybody to understand what we're doing. I want to get more buy-in, really start to use it more collaboratively. And that's, so that's coming from within. That's not from me going, well, let's do this. Sort of said, let's use a session, let's get everybody more involved in it. So definitely more progressively going that way, rather than I'm every month having to wrap my brains of, well, what we're going to talk about and what you're going to do. And building up, definitely.
Good. That sounds good. Yeah, I always think about this from a kind of talent perspective as well.
Yeah.
If you're trying to develop this culture or even shift the mentality of the team, how much of that then feeds into your recruitment when you're recruiting into the team? Is it something that you look at that early stage, or is it
day one from
right?
Absolutely. First engagement that I had with you on when we started talking about bringing in that first person. Hiring anyone is a massive opportunity, or there's a lot of it's not something to be taken lightly. Whether you're recruiting 1 or 10 or 100 or whatever the number is, every single hire is really important and really valuable, really worth investing the time and the energy into making sure you're shaping who you want. You're giving the feedback on the people if it's not quite right for them, as well as the kind of process. But from that very first person is, and to be honest, probably the first person is almost the most important, because if you as a leader, you bring in somebody and they don't land well, your credibility is pretty hammered from the off. So there's definitely a bit more pressure around that early hires, because you've got to show, I can build a team, I can be trusted to kind of go and bring in the right talent. So making sure that message is right and the right people are coming in is kind of key from day one.
Right. Yeah, and I guess there's a couple of angles we can go there, right? But the first one that I want to explore further is what happens when you don't get it right.
Yeah. Hopefully that doesn't happen to the point at which you've hired and then they're in. I think it's often the way you don't get it right in terms of the briefing, when you start to look at people, how you start to have those conversations, because you've got to stand out the market, you've got to know who's out there, you've got to be having the conversations and then see where you adjust and pivot depending on that. I'd like to think we don't bring in the wrong people and it doesn't go that far down the track, but not just for us, for them. And I think one of the things that I've always tried to apply and have that conversation very openly with them is it's a two-way conversation. This is a two-way decision. I recognise you as a candidate are making a decision here in the same way that I am. So, I like to make sure they've got good exposure to the team, not just me as an individual, the office, so they can see where we're working, and that gives them more capacity to ask the right questions that they might be worried about or thinking about, and have that open conversation. And then at the point at which it is a decision point, I also like to make it that it's not purely my decision, especially back to that team dynamic. One of the things I do is kind of bring the team together to kind of make a collective decision and kind of go, look, do you want to work this person? Is this somebody you can see succeeding? Do you think that they will fit within the team culture and the dynamic and add value to what we're doing? So it's not just me taking a shine to somebody and deciding I think they might be good. It's a very much something that again the team feel part of what those recruitment decisions are, and they're involved in it, which I think is important as well for I guess sort of walking the walk, talking the talk. If I say we're going to be all leaders, it's not great if I'm making all the decisions. So, this is an opportunity for us to collectively make the decisions and, really stand by that.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. And look, I can see that as a partner to you guys as well. There's a lot of emphasis on that collaborative approach to the process, which is great, and I guess delivers the right outcomes. So the other key thing that I guess I wanted to understand a bit more is then it must become about the behaviours of the individual, right? And are there specific behaviours that you test for absolutely every time, or is it subconscious, or do you just kind of know when you meet someone and you find that spark? Or
bit of all of the above. I mean, I think there's you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. I don't know if it's totally in the decision making, but I generally have a gut feel for people quite early, and it's sort of it doesn't often swing. So if I kind of think early on I'm not sure they're quite right, it's unusual by the end of it I think they're not right. And equally, if I think they are right, I don't normally swing into kind of not. And that's that's much more about their fit and their behaviours and their energy and their passion and the kind of what they bring to the conversation, more than how many of the boxes are they ticked on the kind of the recruitment sort of list. How many? You've done that, like, great. And we literally were talking earlier. The hiring process we're going through last week, the guy was really good. Just want to get a bit more kind of belief in what they're going to do, and really want to come in and do what they're going to do. People tend to show that, if they really are passionate about whatever their core role is, you can see it comes out, and that for me is like more important than most other things that they could say they've done or they've been. I've worked at a competitor and literally learned everything they could ever learn, but if they come in and they're like like an energy sapper, then that's not what I want. People are going to come in and light up the room, not put the lights out. Yeah,
energy givers, not energy takers. Yeah. And so obviously now you're working in a smaller environment than you've been in previously. Yeah. Has that changed, or has that always been the same? And what I mean by that is, my kind of gut feel when you say that is that actually it really is important now because you've got a smaller team. So every person matters a little bit more potentially. Whereas when you've got a bigger team, potentially you can have people who are maybe a little bit different and maybe don't fit as well culturally, and it doesn't have as bigger impact. Is that a fair statement?
I really like people that have a universal kind of acceptance and kind of desire to grow, like personal growth. How am I going to grow? What does this growth mean for me? Where is this going to take me? That's totally baked into me, and I love it when that's baked into everyone. So I probably do push that into general pieces. I don't really mind, but if somebody's not wanting to grow in some way, that's probably not quite right for us.
So if we look at that another way, you hire someone who is the absolute perfect fit, who's been there, seen it, done it, got the track record, can come in and add value from day one, but maybe hasn't got that growth mindset. Why do you care?
Because somebody like that, if they are coming in, they're probably not going to be that challenged. They're probably not going to be that looking to push the envelope, do something different, take it further. And just because they've maybe done it at Shawbrooks or someone else or any competitor, you kind of whatever, doesn't mean it's right for us in the same way. So, and I worry about people, people getting bored. So, if you've been doing it the last 5 years, why do you want to come and do it with us exactly the same? It's, it's that intrinsic kind of motivation. All right, I can extrinsically motivate you by giving you a bit more money, but how am I intrinsically motivating you to want to come and do it?
Yeah.
And I think, there's a finite amount of ways I can motivate people in any business. But one way I can motivate and build loyalty and commitment from people is I can help them develop and grow. So, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? One of the things that I can't talk about is big, hairy, audacious goals. So what's your big, hairy, audacious goal? What does that mean? How do we help you get there? And we do that annually. So we doing it next week. So everybody, what's your big, hairy, audacious goal? And how do we help? How do I help you achieve whatever that is? And if somebody's just coming in to do the same thing over and over and over again, well, I might be doing a disservice, but I suspect they'll probably get an offer to go and do the same thing somewhere else for 10% more, and they'll just leave because I can't give them anything else. I'm not giving them any greater connection or value. There's only so many hugs I can give someone and kind of, bring in the chocolates and cakes and stuff. So I think that's really important. So I'd rather somebody that hadn't done it all but wanted to learn and had that spark and desire and drive to move. I think they would bring a lot more to us that was doing that. And that goes the same for me. I got a good bit of advice once from a HR director, kind of really, really early in my career. It was like, if you ever see a role and there's less than 10% of the role that you can't do, then you shouldn't go for it. It should always be a proportion of whatever it is you're going for that's new and you're learning from, you're building on. And I guess that stuck with me and in turn affected my recruitment style and thoughts and process.
Yeah, I like that. It makes so much sense, doesn't it? I wonder how many people think like that, right? Is that something that you kind of test in your process when you're looking?
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions I'll probably give away if anybody's coming in to be an interview with us now, so they can prep, is I ask where would this role take you? It's a fairly generic question. Where would this role take you in 2 to 3 years' time in terms of what will we be doing? How will you be feeling? Where will you be? And it's a good indicator of people's thought process on what they're going to get out of it. Because if it's just, I don't know, if I brought in a developer and I said, where do you want to be in 3 years' time? And I want to be a senior developer. You've not really thought about what this is, as opposed to, what do you see this role giving you? And they've thought, well, I know you use this, that, and the other. I really want to learn that. I'm going to get into this. I can understand this bit. I've never used AWS, whatever it may be. That's where I think, okay, there's definitely, they're well motivated to come in and this be a good fit for them. So yeah, that would be something you'd use kind of universally in terms of whatever the role is, whoever they're talking to.
Ties back into growth, I suppose, right? Cool, okay. And so obviously looking at your career journey, I guess the most recent significant point is the fact that you've come out of a bigger organisation into a much, much smaller business with a much, much smaller team. And I'm sure that was something that you kind of considered for a while before you made that move. But since you've made the move, what have you found most surprising about the new environment that you've been in, or what have you enjoyed the most about that transition? One of
my kind of, I guess, traits and kind of personality kind of shortcomings, if you like, is I like to get stuff done. I'm a high red. I'm motivated by moving forwards, delivering things, seeing progress, all that kind of stuff. That's just baked into me. The opportunity to move, I could see, gave me more chance to actually see some tangible results and get stuff done quicker. I've been in organisations that, and there's a good learning in it, and that's great. But I feel I've learned the learning on very protracted selection processes of due diligence, which, a lot to be learned from, loads of value in it. But when you spend more than a year choosing what you're going to do for a particular technical direction, that once you've done that once, that's probably enough. And I kind of didn't want to spend the next period of my career just choosing the right thing, but not actually seeing it come to life and add the value. And one of the things that surprised me, I guess, moving Thincats is, and I knew it would be the case, I knew I wouldn't have to go through such an extensive due diligence kind of framework, and it would be more ability to kind of make decisions and mobilise. It's surprised me how quickly that has been. I wanted to move us into the cloud, and it was part of something that chairman and CEO and others had kind of embraced. They were kind of definitely up for.
Right.
I actually was able to mobilise that from sweep of the market, decision on who we're going to move with, first kind of actual payload transitioned into AWS within 6 weeks, from joining on my first day to a contract with some actual meaningful That was a 6-week journey, and that probably did surprise me a bit, because coming from a bigger organisation, there's just so hard to get a meaningful decision made, and the amount of red tape, the bureaucracy behind it is well documented for most organisations, but into a smaller organisation, it's much less.
Yeah.
So that was in my drivers for leaving, but also I guess even surprised me in terms of what it actually transitioned into.
Is that a unique scenario though, in the sense that you mentioned you had chairman backing, you had CEO backing, and in my experience that enables you to drive things forward at pace pretty much every single time, right? Yeah. So on that basis, does that make that particular example an isolated example?
No, not at all.
Okay,
no.
Interesting.
Another example would be we used a visualization tool that was not really quite meeting the needs, and it had it bridged some gaps. And one of the things that I wanted to do was build out a proper structured enterprise data warehouse to sit underneath whatever tool we were using to visualize data. And I took that to the board and said, look, I need to build a warehouse. I'm going to put Tableau on top of it. I want to kind of shift our reporting to be much more structured, much more lineage and quality behind what we're doing, which everyone's like, yes, that sounds great. And they're like, well, how long, how much is it going to cost? I said, well, look, I think I can actually manage it like this, and I'm going to do it in 6 weeks, which was met with no chance and never seen it done, various other things like that. So it's almost like the gauntlet was thrown down of, well, you can, here's enough rope. So yeah, but you've got to go and get it done. And and we did, and we had to, because the way the contractual terms are working, the way the kind of financials working, I had to kind of sort of move away from one thing into another and get this all to kind of line up.
Right.
Which we did. And that's, one of many things like that we've just been able to get done.
Right. So using that example, how? Was it about starting with the why, making that really clear, having that communication up front, and therefore everything else is easy? Or I'm sure that's a very simplified version, but how?
Getting the right partners quickly. Sort of, we didn't have all the right expertise in-house to get all this done. So I tapped up my network to kind of bring in the right people to give us the right support to kind of mobilize it. But then coupling that with giving the opportunity to some of the team to be part of that journey and then sort of grow and learn for themselves. So I've got a really good guy who's kind of moved into a role of architecture, and I could see that was really where his mind was. It was working, and he had the opportunity, but he'd not done it. I was like, well, look, you can be the architect on this. You can architect it. I'll bring in somebody to act as a consultant architect to help you, but you'll be the architect. They'll be supporting you. They're not doing it. They're not doing the heavy lifting. You're doing it. So it was a bit of bringing in some external expertise. We brought in somebody to do Tableau dashboards, but then they were shadowed by our BI kind of guy, and he kind of then picked it up and they could run with it. So and then some of it was just keep it simple. Really, really drive it down as simple as possible, and just keep going to get it right. So but credit to the team and the people we work with. We got it done, which was
nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I always like hearing stories like that where you can kind of beat expectations, right? Meet the challenge.
Yeah,
it's always a fun thing to do.
I've kind of worked through my career and seen lots of different leadership and stuff like that. There are definite benefits to not making a decision sometimes, and that can be good from a career longevity perspective. And I guess I probably need to mature in myself with that, because I don't like sitting on a decision. I like to get things done and move it on and kind of progress. So with that one, it kind of definitely came off. It kind of worked, and we've done it with a number of other things. I think you've just got to temper that with sometimes having some external counsel to go, look, this is what I'm going to do. How do you make it work? Which is, lucky enough I can have that with people. I can go and kind of have those conversations and see how doable is this? Can I make this work? And just sense check my own commitment to whatever the decision is.
Ambition.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just coming back to that point then, so is that like internal people that you go and talk to, like the board or the exco, or is
external.
it external?
External. I think that technical leadership element, for a lot of firms is at a very, very senior level. Is kind of, you've obviously got positions like my own, but there's a value in having your network. The network beyond that, other CTO or equivalents at other organisations, consultants and the like. I'm lucky to be able to reach out and connect with them and have conversations and kind of use that network, which really is useful.
Right, and that's a well-built network over time, I guess. Right, it's hard to do.
Yeah, and maintain. It's not build it and they'll come. You're going to go build it, and then you've got to commit to supporting it. And,
of course.
And supporting them.
Yeah.
So sort of same way I need support if other people do, then being able to commit the time and help people along the way is equally as important. So that reciprocal piece is there, kind of that dynamic all the time.
Of course. So when you look forward now then, what's the most exciting thing about the role that you're in?
I've just literally kind of finished off writing our strategy, and the exciting bit for me in the strategy we talked about is this is not about being really sexy and doing sexy stuff. This is about just getting things working really, really well. And I'm really excited about, we've got a lot of good stuff. We've got a lot of the right kind of bits, but we need to get them working better. So I'm excited about making them work. And that doesn't mean we have to go and find anything else, which is good because that burns time and effort. We're about maximising the value of what we've got. I think broader than that, I'm really interested in the people's journey. I'm working really hard to kind of look at the people that really want to grow and develop, and thinking about how do I help them with their network. So I've been reaching out to my network and broader to get a lot of them external mentors of their own, because maybe they're a bit early in their career and haven't had a chance to do that. So I'm really excited to see the fruits of that kind of come through, and these people kind of progressing and advancing, not just from me but from other people. So seeing that add to their sort of value and where they can get to and what they can achieve. I think that's probably, alongside the technical kind of opportunity, I think it'd be good to see the Thinkcats platform start to really sing and do its thing, and everybody kind of see that we've made the right decisions and this is the right thing, and not that'd be great.
Yeah.
But I think at an individual level, to see my team grow and move forwards, for a whole number of them would be kind of great to be part of and contribute to, to kind of help them along with their career, and be that Thincats or beyond, wherever it may end up.
Of course, yeah. And I always enjoy having these conversations with you, because you can tell the passion that you've got for the people that are under your employ, right? That are in your team, that you're there to help them grow and develop, and you're clearly committed to that, which is amazing. And so in terms of from a technical side of things, what's different with the role now to where you've been previously? What makes the role at Thincats exciting?
So part of why I joined was the technology itself. So I believed in the business that we were looking at and what we're doing. We serve a segment of the market that's got massive opportunity for us. We're such a small percentage of the potential we can grow into. So that's got massive. That's a kind of big tick. Great, that the kind of business kind of really works. But the technology piece, I'm a real believer in the technology choices that we have made, and now I've been able to make as we've kind of come in. And that was kind of what kind of drew me in, was using those technologies that I've been sort of, I guess, selling and pitching and kind of believing in, but actually now we are going to be able to sweat them and really get them kind of moving a lot further forward. So that would be part of it.
Yeah. When I speak to most CTOs or most people in your position, I think the biggest drag that they have on their time and on their resources is technical debt, right?
Yeah.
And I guess being in a smaller organisation like Thincats, you're probably less susceptible to that. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, it is. One of the KPIs or metrics they kind of track is that it kind of sits back into that run, change, transform. Is how much of the team's time and effort and energy is being invested in servicing and running either kind of legacy tech that is redundant to us, but we have to keep it alive, versus tech that's moving it forward and part of our kind of next kind of platform. And for us, and that is, I've not worked anywhere where it's got the level that we're at. I think 90% of my team's effort is on moving us forward and not necessarily kind of transforming in every capacity, but at least maintaining technology that is part of our transformation journey, with only 10% really having to service technology that we're now moving away from.
Amazing.
And the exact number kind of in previous roles is hard to kind of put a gauge on, but it'd probably be being generous if a third was moving us forwards and 2/3 was kind of keeping the lights on. So to have that swing kind of that way, definitely. And I think it's one of our superpowers. Talk about it within our own team, within the organisation. I think there's a real opportunity for us to really move forwards with it from a technology standpoint in terms of what we're provisioning, because we've got so much of our time we can invest in that. Even though we're a small team, it's a small team that's investing such a large amount of energy on moving it forwards, rather than just keeping things working that you no longer want to have, but you literally can't do anything about. You've got to keep them there. You hate them, but you've got to keep it going.
What a sell. I suppose the risk is at some point it'll probably start to shift back the other way, right? Or does that depend on the technologies that you're using and the tech choices that you're currently making?
What do you mean in terms of you would get to a point where
you'd start to build up that tech debt again?
Yeah, I mean, tech debt is from day one, isn't it? As soon as you put anything in, it's starting to degrade in theory. But I think for the kind of, that's another part of the kind of my kind of strategic direction is I want to keep a really compact technology set. We're a small business, and I want to keep the number of bits of technology running that business as compact as possible, not like distributed like this best in class for every tiny slither.
Right.
But by having a really compact tech set that allows us to pick neo or next generation within them, it minimises the risk of it. And I don't think there's anything out there in the market that I particularly think that's ahead of what we have now. I think there's some interesting things out there. I think 10x and Thought Machine and the likes like that are doing some really interesting stuff in the core banking space, but it's not as established as using Mambu and Sino. It's not quite as established in my view, and I'm sure others would have different views, but in my view it's not quite as established. So you could kind of really go and push the envelope and stuff like that, but that's not where we are. And we equally don't have a lot of investment in areas that aren't advancing us. So we pour a lot of our energy in terms of development into our analytics capability.
Right.
So analytics and the data insights and what we can do with data, I think we pitch well above our weight in terms of what we're doing there. Digitized risk grading, credit underwriting kind of engines that's been built in big data platform. That's pretty unusual for a firm our size.
Of course.
And that's where we can invest our energy in the development angle, and then using off-the-shelf products that are neo products, I think gives us a good balance, because they're investing hard in R&D and moving them forwards, and we're on the top right quartile of stuff that they're kind of looking at. And then we've got our own in-house stuff that's doing some very specific stuff for us that you would struggle to go and buy, and that in itself is being built, that's being built in the cloud, that's being built with, DevOps pipeline, everything that you'd want against it. So if I look at all the boxes that you'd want to be ticking, I think right now where we are with technology, that's where we are. I could throw a whole bunch of buzzwords in.
Cutting edge, but not quite bleeding edge, but by design.
I think bleeding edge is really hard to be able to kind of adapt to an evolving kind of business model. So, we're literally kind of in the process of a product launch at the moment for a new product, whilst I'm in the middle of migrating and decommissioning a legacy platform. But I can do that because I've got an established platform to kind of do it with.
Yeah.
If I was on the bleeding edge, I'd be still trying to build all the stuff to absorb everything from the kind of legacy platform that we're kind of just on the last threads of now. I wouldn't have any bandwidth to think about, right, and now I've got that, I haven't quite finished building the thing that we're kind of doing. Now I'm going to start, putting on top of it. It's it's that analogy of, you're trying to build the car while you're driving it along, sort of thing. We don't have to worry about that in the same space.
Nice.
So yeah, I think it's as far towards the front as we sensibly need to be, and I think it gives us a competitive edge over others, not because we've necessarily made better choices than them, but because I haven't got all the rest of the baggage that they've maybe got. So there's a lot of other baggage that they're having to carry and manage, and some of that baggage is a result of product diversity. I don't have a diverse product range to have to address, which actually makes my life simpler from a technology provision perspective.
Of course.
And again, I think that gives us a real strength in terms of moving forward.
Yeah. And how much time do you spend from a from a technologist's perspective, not necessarily from a tech perspective, but from your perspective as a technologist, how much time do you spend thinking about the competition?
Yeah, quite a lot. One of the things that I used as an exercise within the team was I worked with our kind of business development team to understand who the competitors are to start with, because I didn't know, not all of them. So get a real understanding of who the competition is, and then with that information, we as a team then went out and did our own desk-based research on what are they doing, where are they going, what have they got, what's under the hood, and then brought that back together, and then we looked at it as a team in terms of, right, this is what everybody's doing, but everybody had their own pocket of research to have gone and done, so everybody's kind of bringing our own bit of insight to the table that we could bring together. So a bit what I've been able to do with that now is where we kind of then categorize where they are. I can see the competition that probably not worth me worrying about, because they're either so far over here that it's just not, their tech budget is 20-fold, 100-fold what we would ever spend.
Right.
So can kind of discount them. And then there's another sort of spectrum where I think they're so far below where we are, I don't have to worry. That leaves a pocket of a couple of firms that are kind of roughly in our space that I think we can then target and address and progress beyond.
Similar size firms?
No, the firms that I'm positioning that we should be much bigger than us. But
so exciting.
Yeah, but I think, and this is it's based on my own kind of view and strategy and analysis, that where they've got a very complex product range, they've got merger and acquisition in one instance to have to deal with, they've got a lot of legacy technology to have to address and deal with. One of them's trying to do they're trying to monetize their platform by kind of white labeling and stuff. They've got a whole bunch of technology things that I don't have to worry about.
Right.
And I think that breadth of problem statement they're having to address means when it comes to technology provisioning for SME business loans, I think we'll be able to do a lot more than they will, because that's all we're doing, and we're moving that forwards, that problem.
You've got complete clarity around the why.
Yep.
And the problem statement. And that's the thing, isn't it? I guess with a more diverse product range, you often kind of lose sight of what is it we're trying to do here? What's the ultimate goal? And
you're always going to have to make some form of compromise. No single product can be good at everything. There isn't a brilliant system that everybody, because otherwise everybody going to buy it and everybody, I bought that, brilliant. It's not like the 80s where everybody went and bought IBM or whatever. There isn't an answer that works in that way. So that invariably means that they're having to compromise if they've gone down a sort of mono platform on something in the product, or they've had to go for multiple products to service their market, which means they're having to support a lot of platforms and complexities that goes with it, which makes a whole bunch of other things difficult. So we don't have those problems, which I'm pretty pleased about. But that's kind of in the, I guess, to build that excitement for the team as well. It's kind of, have you consciously absorbed this, thought about it, taken on board? This is why we're here. Let's kind of look at it. So I think that's something we do look at, we do use. Nice. I do want them to be kind of mindful of, because I think, again, I think it's a good discipline and an exercise, and something to be, any of them that ever want to be in my role in the future or anything else, it's good for them to have that opportunity to learn through as well. Yeah, of course. No, I completely subscribe to it. Right. I think I've experience with this running my own business. It's similar. I think
getting each individual to really clearly understand, okay, what are you driving at and what's your path to achieve that? And have you thought about all the things that you can do personally to get there and all the things that you can control? It just makes life so much easier, doesn't it? But it's difficult because it's mindset more than anything else, I guess.
Yeah, and it's just another thing to have to spend time on. It's like,
Of course.
but yeah, I think with all these things, it just it's all part of a bringing together a collective thinking, sharing your knowledge. Do the same with IT strategy. I've worked through the IT strategy with the team, but I kind of brought them in to do much of it, engage them exactly what we're doing, how does it work. None of them written IT strategy before, but it's like, well, here's how it goes, here's the structures, so how we're going to build it, it's a template, let's kind of collaborate on the bits and how we build it out. So so they learn from that as well, so they get a chance to know what does that look like, and certainly in my view what good looks like. And they can see it for themselves.
Perfect. So the other question I wanted to ask you, in terms of generally when speaking to people at your level in your role, that there's always a bit of a toll sometimes in terms of how you've got to that level in your career, right? It's hard work. You've got to put the graft in, right? And obviously you've had quite a long career now of putting that graft in to get to where you are. So what is your relationship with balance, and what's your kind of approach to balance?
Swing it, basically. No.
Perfect.
Yeah, just don't worry about it. So my ethos around it is that there's a mental health triangle that I kind of maintain in my head, and the triangle is kind of three parts to it, obviously. So there's kind of family and friends, which is the social element of that balance. There's health and well-being, which is kind of not necessarily fitness, but just generally how you're keeping yourself healthy, sort of thing. And then the third element is professional, financial work, kind of. And for me, those three things have to be in balance, and it shifts around depending on what's going on at any given point in time, for sure, and you have to kind of accept that. But I guess at least even acknowledging and recognizing that's going on helps have that in your mind as to what you're doing. So I stopped at lunchtime today and I went and used the gym for half an hour.
Amazing.
Because I find my productivity is better for having done something where I get away from work anyway. So I don't think I'm detrimentally impacting, but also I think it's better for me to stay, have that balance, rather than I just come in, I do a 12-hour day, I go home and eat rubbish, and then I feel crap, and then I get tired and I get run down, all that kind of stuff. So I that my way of addressing it is to kind of really think about it, but I don't carry that, and I know a lot of people do. I don't carry that kind of guilt around. Like tomorrow, it's Friday and my kids are off, and I'm gonna clock off at a sensible time because we're gonna go do something. I won't be carrying a massive level of guilt about the fact that I've left at 4 o'clock or something like that, and I should be working till 6, and that's really important, or 10, or whatever number you people want to put on it, which doesn't, I'm sure that some people could work all the hours under the sun and do a hell of a lot more and great things, but I think giving that rounded perspective is important to me. And I think the value back into the business is that sort of thought process is something I sort of drive into my team as well. And they see me doing it. It's not like I just kind of half saying it. It's like, and that's the thing with the team principles, is they're not my principles to enforce, they're our principles to apply. So if I'm not applying them, then I want you to call me out on it. So when people have stuff going on, or they want to go and see kids play or stuff like that, brilliant, great. You don't have to apologise, because I know there's a balance. People will graft, and I had the team in not last weekend, the weekend before, putting in implementation in, and they worked a hell of a lot all through the weekend. So it's like, well, when are you not working this week, because you need to go and just down tools from that kind of thing. So
nice.
I think by me having that balance and demonstrating that balance helps, because they know I believe in it. I'm not just sort of half saying it, and therefore if they go to lunch, I'm actually slagging them off for,
Yeah.
where have you gone? What are you doing?
Why have you stepped away from your desk?
I thought I'd change you to that desk. So no, I think it's good for. I think it's good. It's good for me. So it's not just purely me being completely kind of supporting them. But it's good for me, and therefore I think it helps.
Yeah.
With what others around me are kind of seeing.
Very good. Yeah, I think I've heard that piece that you were talking to about the kind of, the need to constantly be doing something. I heard it referred to recently as professional anxiety, which performance anxiety. Performance anxiety. Yeah, I quite like that.
It is, and I don't tend to kind of subscribe to it, and I don't think it's great.
So is good enough?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think there is a lot to be said to that. I think that kind of perfection, 95th plus percentile of where you want to get to. No, definitely. There's knowing when to execute and kind of push it over the line. And we had it with when we put Mambu in, actually. So when we put Mambu in last year, we had been trying to get this first tranche of loans into the platform.
Yeah.
It's various things as I came in or going on. But anyway, I kind of got pretty much in. But at some point we needed to make a decision and switch the thing on and go, it's not perfect, but at some point we have to make a decision because getting to perfect, we could spend the next year getting to perfect.
Of course.
So, I made the call that we're going to go live, we're going to migrate in, and we're going to see where the chips land, and we'll then deal with it. And the sell back into my leadership team was, and that's a bit of an education for them, was we'll have a warranty period. And they're like, what's a warranty period? And I said, well, you buy a kettle, you get a warranty with it. Same sort of deal with this. We will put in a 6-week warranty, and that's where our plan is to have it working and running. And if it takes 6 weeks, it takes 6 weeks. If it gets to 6 weeks and it's still not right, we will have to extend the warranty. But our target is to get it in, and we'll get everything fixed within 6 weeks.
Nice. And
that was how we got it in. So yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said for don't keep trying to get it perfect, because that isn't there.
There's no such thing.
No, it's somebody will always find something wrong with it. So you might as well just get on with it and see what happens.
Very good. Well, what a nice note to end on. The last question I wanted to ask you before we wrap up is it's a bit more of an expansive question. So, well, it's not actually. It's a very specific question. So, what one thing do you know now that you absolutely wish you knew at the start of your career?
When I started my career, I didn't really know what I wanted my career to be. And evidence of that was I left university with a good degree, and I literally machine gunned my way in around every single thing, anything you could ever think of. And I think at the time, that lack of clarity I found really hard. I'd kind of spent 3 years going through education, taking on a whole lot of debt, having a good time, with an expectation at the end of it, you come out and then this is where I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And when I didn't land an amazing job on day one, and it took me 6 months to get my first kind of real proper kind of graduate role that I was looking for. And even then when I landed it, it was kind of like, right, this is what's going to happen. Where's it going to go? What's going to come next? And that isn't the way my career has kind of unfolded. That there have been a whole wealth of opportunities. And actually, when it came to kind of moving into a role as a CTO, one of the things that somebody had given me advice early, a mentor early in my career was, if that's the direction of travel you want to take, there are gaps in your knowledge across this spectrum. I hadn't done direct first line operational support, hadn't been part of my mixture of stuff. So I didn't know what it meant when the thing blew up and all eyes were on you to get it back working. So I took a role where I had a very direct operational kind of responsibility to get things working, and that rounded that out. And I think if somebody told me at the beginning, you you don't need to know exactly where you're going and have it all mapped out, because actually there's some value in having a breadth of experience that you will bring to wherever it is you kind of progress. I think that would have probably given me a bit more comfort when it felt like everybody around is kind of knows exactly what they're going to do and where they're going to go and what it's going to mean and all this kind of stuff. And nobody really does. It's just all kind of, you're all kind of fumbling your way through.
Winging it.
Just kind of at the early kind of literally kind of infancy of your career. I think it would have been good to have had that kind of foresight to know that as long as you're embracing those opportunities as they come and looking for them, not just kind of expecting them to land in your lap, then there'll be loads of stuff, loads of great things, and it will be a range of things, and it won't just be a kind of really straight path. So probably that would be something that would have been good to know then, that you kind of pick up a bit along the way, but you certainly no idea at the beginning.
Yeah, nice. Well, thanks very much.
No worries.
Very enjoyable. I enjoyed that a lot. It was a good chat.
So Billy has quite a unique perspective on how he manages and leads his team. You can tell that he has a real kind of focus on building a family-oriented environment. And to be honest with you, as a supplier into their business and as a supplier into Billy's team, you can really sense that. So all the way from the recruitment process, from selection through to assessing the candidates and onboarding them, and even before they start, he's got a real focus on making sure that people are welcomed and that they're set up for success, which I find quite refreshing. The other thing that Billy talked about, which was, I guess, quite unique, is the fact that in the smaller environment that he's in now and the proximity that he's got to the board and the CEO, he's able to make decisions so much quicker than he was before. Now, the question that raises for me personally is, is there really an opportunity to drive innovation at the same pace within a blue chip kind of larger organisation where there's natural levels of bureaucracy and divisional splits between teams as you can within a smaller, more entrepreneurial business like a Thincats?